When lawmakers return to Washington this week to debate this war, they should keep in mind these words from Donald Trump himself.
Our president will start a war with Iran because he has absolutely no ability to negotiate.
You know, it's sort of interesting. If we had the right negotiator right now in office, which we don't, you don't have to go to war.
There's a very good chance that we'll end up in a war with Iran, because I think it's politically possibly a positive for Obama, even though it's not a good thing for our country.
Yes, that was Donald Trump's alarmist, and I will say very inaccurate prediction back in 2012 that then President Barack Obama would attack Iran to boost his political fortunes. Among other things, Trump said the right negotiator in office would have to attack Iran, and that war with Iran was, quote, not a good thing for our country. But it's not just Trump. Several of his current top officials have also been adamant in their opposition to war with Iran, including his own vice president, J.D. Vance.
Our interest, I think, very much is in not going to war with Iran.
I won't send you abroad for regime change wars or oil wars.
We've got to stop Donald Trump from starting a war with Iran.
I'm joined now by Democratic Congresswoman Madeleine Dean of Pennsylvania, who sits on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Thank you so much for joining us on this important news night. So I just want to go back to what the president has previously said. He warned us that President Obama would start a war with Iran on false pretenses. Do you feel that that's what Donald Trump is actually doing now?
Stephanie, it's good to be with you, but it is a grievously serious weekend, as you know, and I thank you for your very serious reporting around all of these issues. And what I really am sad about is that this president is not a serious president. What you previewed there in 2012 or whatever years that was a man who was just posturing an awful lot, not understanding the depth of these issues. And sadly, he is now in the position of power and seriously not understanding these issues and what he has gotten us into. I am very concerned about where we are in terms of war with Iran. I'm very grievously concerned for our military members, men and women, 40, 50, 60,000 members of the military who are in this theater. We already know, if I am correct in what I've read, that 3 are deceased and others are seriously wounded. And the president is already talking about many others potentially deceased and wounded. And the president, 4 days ago, 4 days earlier, had a joint session with Congress, had a State of the Union address where he had the duty, the obligation to come forward and say here was his plan for a military action in Iran, and he failed to do it. He's unconstitutionally, illegally operating, and I wish those around him would actually call it out to him.
So what, if anything, do you plan to do about it?
I thank you for asking that. We have a war powers resolution that we will bring forward this week, as you know. Strangely, we have been canceled. An awful lot of days of session have been canceled this week. I don't know if you noticed that. I had a meeting, personal, private meeting with the Speaker of the House in advance of this about, I guess it would be 10 days ago now. And I called upon him to tell the truth. Congress must absolutely assert our Article 1, Section 8, powers of to declare war. The founders knew that it should never be in one person's hands. And don't misunderstand me, Stephanie, and no, none of your listeners should misunderstand me. The Ayatollah Khomeini was a murderous, mad person who I have no sad feelings for his passing, none whatsoever. But we have a constitution. We are a democracy that is rooted in our constitutional Article 1, Section 8 says Congress has the power to declare war, not a single person. The founders knew very well the difficulty of having a monarchy, someone who would potentially be tyrannical, be in that set of powers. And so I hope that we will get back to D.C., and we will hold this president to account. What he has done is extremely dangerous, extremely damaging. I was in Israel 2 weeks ago, hoping to forge together that fragile ceasefire, that fragile peace that makes sure we dismantle the terroristic group Hamas, obviously part of the state-sponsored terror of Iran. But we have in this president somebody who is incredibly unserious and dangerous and putting our military at extraordinary risk.
Then do you think you can convince your Republican colleagues of this? I mean, we've heard from people like J.D. Vance and Tulsi Gabbard in the past that attacking Iran is not in the country's best interest. Do you think you can convince your Republican colleagues to share the viewpoint that the administration once had and that you have, and potentially get them on board to move this president?
I have very little hope for J.D. Vance or members of this cabinet. They have shown themselves to be extraordinarily unserious and so facile, so willing to support the idiocy and I think the madness of this president. I have said to the Speaker of the House, he is unhinged and unwell. So J.D. Vance, no. He has other interests, his own interests at heart. I do hope to have other members of Congress, Republican members of Congress, join us when they see how serious this is. Let's see how this began. The reporting is 118 students at a girls' school were among the first casualties, and we also had 3 American soldiers killed. I hope I can persuade, and many of us will persuade others, that this was not the right tack to take. Diplomacy was the right tack to take. Where was our Secretary of State? Why is it that it's these deputies? I don't know who they are, but they all have a financial interest in the Middle East, whether it is a son-in-law or others. Why isn't it that we have a Secretary of State confirmed by the Senate to actually negotiate in the Middle East about peace, issues of peace and war?
I'm out of time, but I do just want to ask you before we go. I know you just got off a call with the whole House Democratic caucus. What can you tell us about your party's thinking as we're heading into this week?
Extraordinary unity, extraordinary fortification, that what the president has done is unconstitutional. And strangely, it meets in about a matter of a week with the Supreme Court telling him that Article 1, Section 8 does not give him the power to tax or tariff, and Article 1, Section 8 does not give him the power to declare war. We are incredibly unified. That's what I can tell you.
Congresswoman, thank you for joining me.